good vibes, everyone, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of Good Morning Minute. I'm your host, Angelina Mojica, and I hope you're starting your day with positivity, purpose, and of course, I'm here to drop a little cup of wisdom in your lap. Today, we're diving into the topic that's becoming more and more relevant in our rapidly changing work environment, the generational gaps in the workplace. Have you ever noticed how differently people from different age groups approach work, communication, and collaboration? Maybe you've seen younger employees push for more technology and flexibility, while more seasoned workers emphasize tradition and structure, with Gen Z, millennials, and Gen X all contributing their unique strengths and perspectives. Today's workplace is a melting pot for generational diversity. But with that diversity also comes both challenges and opportunities. And with that, I want to introduce our guests today. We have Mia Rodriguez and Madison Elliot. Mia, go ahead and share a little bit about yourself.
Yes, hey, thank you for having me. I am 26 years old. I had to think about that for a second because I still feel and probably look like 18. So I'm an ultrasound tech. I also volunteer on the worship team, and I love getting to do both of those things. Those are both kind of my passions, and getting to do both of them is really great. I'm a cat mom. That's very important to me. I love my cat babies. And I'm married. And so married to my high school sweetheart. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Well, welcome to the show. And so, Madison, introduce yourself.
Hi, yes. So my name is Madison, and I am also 26 years old. I just turned 26 in July. So I think I fall on the cusp of Gen Z and millennial. I think I personally identify more with Gen Z. But I work for my county government, and I've been doing that for about 3 years now. Beforehand, I worked at a bail bonds office. So I've kind of had some very interesting jobs in the past. And I too, I'm also a worship leader at my church. I've been serving at for literally 3 years on, I want to say November 1st. And so that's also my passion as well. So me and Mia have a lot of that in common. So yeah, that's pretty much about me. I'm not married at this time, so I'm just a working girl, church girl. That's me.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that either. Marriage is a true blessing, but singlehood, you would think it would be easy because you have less responsibilities as it looks, but that is not true. I've dipped in both of those situations myself in through life, so I definitely understand. But it is hard work being single, especially in this decade. I would feel. Uh, Okay, so let's jump into our topic. We're talking about the generational gaps in the workplace. So funny story. And Mia, do you want to share this, how this topic came to life?
Yes, I can. So actually, Madison was the first person that I met who ever called me queen, but she doesn't just call me queen. She calls every sweet human she meets, well, female queen. I remember her calling my grandma queen. And we both were driving back to Lubbock after getting to worship with her. And my grandma just was like, she is the sweetest person. And I loved how that made my grandma feel, how that made me feel. And then later that week at work, I had another young patient and she called me queen. And I just thought, like, this is really funny that language for Gen Zs, we kind of hype each other up in these ways. And so I made a little story about how that positive interaction fueled my day with positivity. I could not remember if I was having a bad day because I was just having a good day. And it just left me feeling like full of life, full of positivity. And I wanted to share that. And then you got to see the story and it kind of inspired this. So it's really cool that we all get to be here talking to each other.
Yes, I was so excited to even bring this idea to the podcast. So, for our first question, I'm just going to jump into it. What do you guys or you ladies think that are the differences between the generations, and or maybe describe it, like especially in the workplace. What kind of observations have you captured to highlight some of the differences between the different generations?
Okay, I will share. I think this generation kind of gets, it's before boomers. It's called the silent generation. I
Mhm.
think of my great grandma. She's 86 years old, and she was told her whole life to be seen but silent. And I think from her raising a boomer, I think something in translation kind of prohibited speaking. I don't know, not being heard, thinking more in your head. And I think Gen Zs in particular break this mold. I think so, not all of us, like a big generalization, but a lot of Gen Zs that I know, we use words to communicate rather than actions. I feel like that's one of the biggest differences. And I think both are equally good. I think it's really interesting to see them work together in the workplace or in family relationships. And so I think that's really, I've noticed that just from my family, but also working with people who are in the boomer generation. I think something was very taken with them being raised by that silent generation of being seen and not heard. And so I feel like I come in and I just like break that mold. I was born to yap, and so yapping I will do.
That's great. And Madison, what is your perspective?
For sure. So I think it's so funny that you said that about the seen and not heard, because that is one of the notes that I literally wrote down. But from what I've seen in the workplace, just from who is in the workplace right now, I would say that predominantly I see some baby boomers. I feel like they're kind of not on the edge, but we still see them, but they're not the predominant demographic. Then I feel like we see a lot of Gen X and millennials, like that is who's kind of dominating the workplace right now. And then Gen Z, we're kind of entering in. So you've got some that have been in there since they got out of high school, which was like for me back in 2016, or the ones that are now recently coming into the workplace since they've graduated, college or with their master's or their bachelor's, whatever that might be. And so it's really an interesting demographic, I feel, because like Mia had said, like we're breaking the mold of a lot of things. And so I feel like we're really like seeing that transition right now in the workplace. And I'll be honest, it's kind of exciting to be a part of. I feel like there's a lot to learn and really a lot of growth that'll come from that. So that's kind of my observation.
Just hearing you two talk and discuss just even this first question, it really does hit. Like I said, I'm here to learn because I do lead several of the generation that we're talking about. And hearing you say being raised by the silent generation, because I remember growing up being told children are to be seen, not heard. And
Mhm.
so, and then just kind of having conversations with other Gen Xers, they too say, our actions speak for our work. And it's so funny that you guys are seeing that because I definitely operate subconsciously under that mindset. So I'm like, okay, my eyes are starting to open up here. So I'm super excited to hear a lot more of what you guys have to say. Um, so what do you think are the generational differences that are influencing the collaboration and teamwork?
That's a good question. I feel like um, what could be influencing the collaboration? I think just naturally, like who is in the workplace right now. I think that for the older generation, I feel like we were all influenced by something different. For example, the older generation, just by who they were raised from, they're very family oriented. Like I'm coming to work because I have a family that I need to care for, that I need to take care of. Not that they aren't influenced by like growth or by like leadership or by wanting to grow in that. And then I feel like for the younger generation, we're very motivated by like fulfillment, I mean. And so I don't know. I think right now is we're kind of seeing like the contrast between the two. Like we've got two different types of motivations in the workplace. I don't know if that answered your question just right, but that's kind of what I've seen, like what is valued right now, like in the workplace by what we're working towards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Go
that
ahead.
is so true. I actually love that answer, Madison. I think too, we're in an interesting time where Gen Zs, most of Gen Zs, and I would say millennials and the other generation have figured out they do not have to go to an 8 to 5 to pay the bills because we have this new thing called influencers. And so it's almost like if you're going to work and it's almost in my mind, I'm like, I mean, I guess I could have turned on a camera and put makeup on and like showed it to the world. But I also feel like this generation is driven by their passions. And so that's something I think the other generations have known. I need to get a job. What can I do? What can I apply for? And Gen Zs, and particularly a lot of my friends, they are willing to wait for their dream job. They're willing to wait for just the right place. And I'm in no rush. We're in no rush. As long as it feels good, it feels like where I'm meant to be, it feeds my soul. We kind of get the choice of where we get to go. I think that changes our drives of how we're coming together in the workplace.
Mhm.
And that's so interesting because I know so I'm a director for a foster care agency, but just leading in a team dynamic of that magnitude, I see a lot of that turnover. And you're telling me it's because you're looking for passion, you're looking for fulfillment. So how do we give that to you guys in the workplace? Like what taps into that? What kind of conversations should we be having?
Wow, that's so good. I think when I'm thinking about how I chose my job, I was in a very, very blessed situation where I was graduating ultrasound school and I had 3 places that were searching me out. I was so blessed. But the one place that I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna say yes to this place is because I they felt like family. The people that were there, they felt like family. I felt like it was safe to ask questions. I felt like it was a safe place to be confused but be held together by all of the generations that worked at my job. I have our bosses a boomer and there's a millennial. Like we really do have every generation, but we treat each other with respect. If anybody had a question, they were always safe. It was a safe place to ask them. And I would say number 2, the biggest thing that I saw was that they did not talk negatively about each other ever. And the other workplaces, I felt like I could not get away from that, from negativity of talking about each other or the negativity of talking just in general. And I don't know, that negativity would bring me down when I was a student. So
Mhm.
I was looking for a place where they were fueled by positivity. And it's not that they didn't have a bad day, because there were bad days, but I saw how they handled the bad day, how they had positivity in their everyday speech, and they never talked bad about each other. That was really important to me, something that I was looking for.
So
I do
nice.
sorry, I do want to add. So I kind of come from an interesting, I feel like this is actually speaks for a lot of Gen Zs, but I don't have a college education. I went to like a year and a half of college and I had to drop out due to like family reasons. And so discovering my place in the workplace was kind of a journey. I started where everybody starts, customer service. I was a server at Luby's cafeteria. And then I kind of started to discover my niche where I started having people come and offer me jobs. One of the things that like held me and really made me want to work at the place that I'm currently working is what it was the questions that my boss was asking in the interview. And I will be completely honest, like I'm not saying this because I want to raise or anything, but I will praise my boss for this because I feel like she was very upfront in the interview. Like, this is the environment and the nature of the job. We're very like, we're going to be helping people that are desperate and in need. Is this something that you can do? Like, not only are you a good fit for the job, but is this job a good fit for you as well? And like, kind of seeing that, it really opened my eyes to the kind of job that I was getting myself into. But I kind of had already been like working up to that. But I would say, like, not only the work environment itself, like Mia was describing, but that initial interview from my boss, like, I think putting those expectations out in an interview is literally so important because that's what got me really passionate about what I do for a living. So that is my piece on that.
I like that you highlight that, Madison, because I know that when I do interviews, I approach them more conversational. And that's the first thing I'll say is this is a conversation because you are interviewing us just as much as we're interviewing you. And we want to make sure that this fits for everybody. And so I appreciate that you highlight that because that is definitely a perspective change that I have started implementing just in the past 5 years because I do see that because we're talking about being able to, I mean, Mia, you talked about having a family, a work family and that environment and safe. And it all starts from the interview. At least I feel it does, just to kind of get an idea of who we are as an agency hiring on that person. So I love that you highlighted that. And then you also, Mia, you mentioned flexibility. You mentioned being an influencer and not having to devote a whole 8 hours or more to a job. So, what role does flexibility, whether that's flexible hours or remote work, play in attracting and retaining talent from each generation?
Wow, that is so good. I would say I personally feel my job, I work at the hospital and I have to take call. So I feel like that is the most unflexible position already. When I have to take call, I will be asleep, deep sleep, and get a call and have to go. And so for me, flexibility looked like if I was going to take a week off, I would be able to get that approved and I would be able to take that off and not get backlash from the people around me. And the other places that were interested in me, one, I saw a lot when I was a student of their boss not approving time off.
Mhm.
And that was really scary for me. I thought, oh my gosh, like this is my life that I'm talking about. I want to be able to spend time with my family. We take vacations. Like I need to have those things. And so I was very lucky because I was a student at each place and I was a fly on the wall. Not only was me being a student an interview for them to like me, but it was also a place for me to see, do I fit here? So I got really lucky in that. But for me, that flexibility, I knew that my job was not going to be a flexible job. And that was the sacrifice I was going to take. So for me, it was when I take time off, one, will you give it to me if it's, a reasonable ask? And then two, are people going to give me backlash for taking time off and being with my family? Because I saw a lot of that too, of, oh, she's taking time off again, or the negativity of that. And I could not, I was like, no, for me, for teamwork to work well, I need to be in a place where it is safe to take the time off if I need to. And so I got really lucky in that. That was something I was looking towards. But for me, flexibility looked different. So I'm interested to hear Madison's answer to this.
For sure. I think flexibility is super important, especially because like you have your jobs, but also like you have your career and like what you want to make your career. And so flexibility was huge for me in where I wanted to choose my career to be at, especially, and it is a little bit of a slimmer option as somebody that's not like fully college educated. And so Like for my job, one of the perks I feel, we have the option to telework. I love that that is a thing. It is literally
Yes.
a blessing.
Mhm.
I have the option to work from home whenever I'm sick. So if I don't have that sick time accrual, I can still work from home, take my medicine, rest as needed. I'm not having to get up and like walk around an office. Now, whenever I'm feeling good, all of those things, I'm still required to be in the office. But things like that, and looking at, okay, what are the policies on like time accrual and vacation? Like, that's important to me, especially I'm sure Mia understands this, but we're both worship leaders, we're in the ministry. And so there are times where that calls me away from my job. And I think it's also this perspective of, yes, I work, but also like my life is not work. It's also outside of what I do on an everyday basis to earn money. So that flexibility is absolutely so huge and crucial to me.
I love that you mentioned work life balance because I often tell the people that I work with, well, the work is always going to be there, but you're not. So you might as well make yourself a priority, whether that is taking off your time or being sick when you're sick and just you have sick time, take it. Like those are the support systems that we put in place to offer that flexibility. So I totally get it because coming from a social work background, that is day in day out, like you're always helping people, and so the need is always there. So I definitely try to highlight for our team, take the time off because that's still going to be there, that's never changing, but you won't, and so you need to make sure that you prioritize yourself. And then also too, the idea of you work to live, not live to work.
Mhm.
Mhm.
For sure. Okay, so let's jump into a little bit more about communication and leadership. So how do different generations prefer to be mentored or coached in the workplace?
Hmm,
I love that question.
that is.
Personally, I got some life advice from my worship leader a few years ago, and he said, you always need to be mentored by someone, and you always need to be having someone your same age, and then always mentoring somebody else. And he would say, you're never too young to not mentor somebody. So these things I've always thought about, like what is in my circle right now, who's mentoring me, who am I mentoring? And at the time I was way more better about that. I actually am in a place right now where I don't feel like I'm mentoring anybody. I think that's just the season of life that I'm in. But I personally love to be mentored. I love feedback from my life, from my own life. And I think feedback is so useful. And the position that I work, I feel like every little detail about my job is very feedback oriented, very criticism oriented. And I tell people when they ask me they want to work at where I work, I tell them, just so you know, you receive a lot of feedback. It's not criticism. I think a lot of people think criticism is bad, but criticism is just feedback. So I just flip the word. Like you're just going to receive a lot of feedback on your images, on your patient care, just a lot of that. I think mentoring is really important. I sort of feel like other generations, or maybe just people around me who are older, might see mentoring as they are not good enough. And I hope they don't feel that way, because I don't know why feedback is seen as like, man, I'm in trouble or I'm not doing something right. But it's just it's a way for somebody to say in words what you're doing well and how you can do it better. And I hope that one day, I feel like if everybody was able to be mentored, we might just be a little bit more flexible with each other, and understanding with each other. So that's kind of my view on mentoring.
Yes, I love that. And you see, and one thing that I loved, the whole you should have someone above you, someone that's same as you, and someone below you. My pastor has said this to me. I'm sure Mia has heard my pastor say this. If you're not learning, you're not growing. And so I am like a firm believer in mentorship. It is interesting to see how the different generations do kind of accept mentorship though. For example, just like based on like learning, I have a lady at my job who I go to frequently because I'm kind of picking up and doing the same skill set that she had been doing for Loki like decades before me. And so my brain, how I'm wired is I like to ask the why questions because and I hear that a lot about Gen Z. We're always like, why? And it's like, truthfully, I feel like my brain needs to know why in order to know to do it for the future. And one thing, like, she always says is she's like, just because like that's what I've been told to do. That's just how we've always done it. And I'm like, okay, I get that. And so that's whenever my brain triggers, okay, let me go into policy and see why that was implemented and things like that. And I think it kind of goes to show how mentorship has kind of changed over time. I feel like the older generation, they were told to
Mhm.
do something a certain way and were trained to do something a certain way. And for us, like I feel like we do ask those why questions. And so I think mentorship is going to evolve and change for the future because we're going to have a lot more curious people like coming up in the workforce, especially because we haven't even seen the bulk of Gen Z yet. Like they're coming.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, that's my take on that.
Wow. And
And
oh, go ahead,
that's
Mia.
good. I was gonna say I totally agree with this why question, and I want to saying why is so not disrespectful. I don't know why. If you're like, but why do we do this? They're kind of taken back. Like, why would you question why we do the same thing for 40 years? And I totally agree with you. I don't know if you know why you do it. It sticks in your head and heart better then this is the same thing that I do that I'm supposed to do. Because I don't know, that can be so missed in translation. I feel like knowing why is like giving purpose to such to a rule, and it just feels right.
Yes, it literally
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, I understand that too. That's actually just to kind of help you understand that a little better as far as whoa, you're asking me this why question. That actually comes from that silent generation. You do what you're told, you do what you're told, and you don't question it. And because I was raised under that mentality. And so for me, it's now stepping into like leadership and whatnot. I've had to change that idea because it's okay. I mean, you want to know the reason behind things. I know growing up for me, I wanted to know the reasons behind things and I was always shut down. Um, so it's really having to reprogram the way I lead and think and interpret the mentoring aspect and the coaching aspect. So I always deliver the why. This is the reason that this is happening. Whatever that is. Can you get on board with that? Can what are your ideas? And so a lot of questions that I ask as well, so that there is that collaboration and communication. It's not me just delivering a directive and saying, that's it, go and do it, but actually asking for the collaboration, asking for the teamwork, and asking for the feedback back. Because what I've learned and what I tell people is, my way isn't the only way.
Mhm.
It can
So
be
good.
different for anybody, and it might be faster. I know that with technology and just the different ideas, you guys are so innovative and you come up with different ways to hit the same results. And I'm one of those that's like, hey, if you can get there faster, then do it. Just make
Mhm.
sure that we do everything towards compliance and stuff. But that's me, and I can understand. So hearing you talk about that really just makes me even think, oh, okay, wow. Um, so when it does come to the communication and feedback, how is that accepted and delivered? I know that I've struggled when I give feedback to the younger generations because I'm very just straightforward and blunt. I just jump into it. And I'm like, here's what it is. And I do ask for their understanding or, do you have any questions? Or is there anything you want to suggest? And I always hit like this just dead stare. And I don't know
Mhm.
if it's the approach that I'm doing or not, but how should that communication and that feedback be delivered so that it is uh interpreted safe and open and just accepting of, okay, this is a teamwork moment.
That's a great question because I think, especially, I think it's funny whenever I say whenever I was younger, because I have a lot of older people that are like, yeah, what are you, 26? But I think whenever I was younger, I think I struggled receiving feedback, but I think that it wasn't necessarily stemmed from anything from the workplace, but just how people are brought up. Um, I I think that certain things can be addressed amongst like the office or wherever you're working at. Like I do, like if a reminder email is sent out, like, hey guys, just remember, this is in our policy. Let's make sure that we're doing things according to that. That way, if it's something and it's like, oh yeah, like I need to make sure that I'm remembering to do that. That's one of those ways that I'm good at receiving things. Or if it is like more so like a counseling thing, like, hey, this is kind of like you're the only one that's doing this, let me like pull you into the office, like make sure that it's a safe place, but to give you that feedback not in front of everybody. I've had managers in the past give feedback that could have been embarrassing if like said in front of everyone, because it's like, oh, she should have known to do that, you know. And so
Mm.
I've and it really might stem from they've had previous employers do that, and so that might be the reason why they're taking it wrong. I'm personally always one that appreciates feedback in whatever possible way. I think I've grown as a person in that way. But I think, you know, just maybe like knowing the person and kind of feeling them out, like, do they receive better this way or that way? I think things can be addressed corporately or personally, depending on what it is. So that's my personal preference, I suppose.
Yeah, that's criticism is such, like I said, that word seems so harsh. And I can agree with Madison. It took me so long, like embarrassing long to be able to receive criticism, receive feedback, and feel like that wasn't a representation of me.
Mhm.
And I am a sensitive person. I will cry. I will do the whole thing. So it was really hard to do that. And I didn't realize that my job was my ultrasound pictures were going to be critiqued every single patient. It's very unique, and you have to be able to receive criticism. So they try to break you in school. They really do. They try to get you used to constant feedback, constant criticism. I was going to agree with Madison. I really do well with feedback when I'm more one-on-one. I feel like when it's done in front of everybody else, but it's really unique to you, it's very like isolating and kind of embarrassing. I'm going to use
Mhm.
the dramatic word. It's traumatizing. It's it's a little bit like I don't want to do this in public. So, one on one, and I know the blank stare you're talking about of, do you have any questions? And in your mind, you're just like, I have received so much information. I don't know what I don't know until I don't know it. So I think the people, especially there's one woman at my work, and she's so great at this. She doesn't ever say, do you have any questions? She always is very specific. She'll ask something that was confusing to her that she remembers. And so it's more like, okay, so how will you get there when I'm
Mhm.
not there? How will you, it's more targeted. And I feel like that's such an easier digestible question. Because when they say like any questions, yes, life in general. Let's just talk about that. So that's really helpful, I think, I think in my generation. I don't know why, it's just an easier digestible thing.
Absolutely.
That really is a different perspective and a different take on that. So I do like that. I might start incorporating that myself, because I do want it to be conversations, because I try not to, when I'm pulling someone in on a one-on-one, I try not to use one-on-one, or I always try to use the word conversation, because I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I just know what I'm seeing, and I want to understand that better. And it's almost like I say, okay, let's schedule a conversation. And then they feel like they're being pulled into the principal's office. And I'm like, no, that's
Yes.
not the situation. I just want to understand. Or how can I help you better and support?
Mhm.
What are you need? What are you needing? Great, great conversations, ladies. I love it. So let me ask you, how do you define success in your career?
Ooh.
Hmm.
You know, I don't I don't know if I've seen necessarily like success. I think how I would define it would be how am I growing? Because like I don't think that there will ever come a place in my life. This has just kind of been like a mindset of mine where I feel like I have it all or that I know everything. I feel like as long as I'm continuing to see growth and I'm getting positive feedback for that, I think that kind of determines success for me. Like even if I'm not, like lead supervisor or manager in my office, like that doesn't necessarily mean that I've achieved success. I think that it's more so I think like am I growing and like am I being recognized for that? So I think that that's success to me for sure.
Wow, that is such a it's not a tricky question. It's like a full depth. I'm gonna have to write a novel to find the ending and the answer. Wow. So I feel like for me, success in my job has been when people tell me they've had such a kind experience with me. I think just because it's so unique to the hospital's very fast paced. Sometimes they'll tell me, like, you're the first person who's tried to talk to me like a person. And I don't know why, but that has become so important to me. And it's not always easy to do because my job feels very rushed. I have like after this patient, I'm gonna do the next patient, and everything's on a time limit. And so I think when I started hearing that from people, it made me want to be present. So I think success for me looks like being present with the people in front of me. And I think I need to implement that in all of my life, like not just work life,
Mhm.
but just being present and in the moment. I think, especially me, I am so ready for the next thing. I'm thinking about the next patient, I'm thinking about the next weekend. I don't know, I'm thinking about all the things. And so, yeah, success will be when I'm able to be present more and just being able to do that more. That's what I really hope to do in my job and in my life.
Such beautiful answers, ladies. So, what kind of wisdom would you drop to our listeners as they are Gen Xers, millennials, Gen Zs, that would help them just be more adaptable in their work challenges?
Mhm. I think as far as adapting, I think as long as everybody has the heart posture of I'm willing to learn, um, and everybody has the heart posture of being patient with one another, I really feel like change can come like easily. I know that there's always going to be pushback, but I really feel like there's always really the ability to move forward as long as like we have that patience with each other and as long as you are willing to learn. If you're not willing to learn, then there's really no point in going forward, I feel. And I think that really goes with any generation, all the way from the silent generation if they're still working, or baby boomers, all the way to Gen Z. And I also think also as a Gen Z, I think that we can kind of like come into a situation and be like, I know it all. Like this is my area. I don't need anybody's help. I don't feel like that's a place that we should ever be at. I feel like we're always going to be able to draw from one another knowledge and wisdom. I feel like every person from any generation is going to bring a piece of knowledge that is going to help with the change, especially with like a lot of jobs are going paperless and things like that, and there is a lot more of a in my job, there's this whole digital mindset that is like being implemented. And there's a lot of older people that are, oh snap, like what's going to happen? And they're like kind of freaking out. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Like we're going to go through this together. They're going to give us the proper training. And also after you're trained, if you still don't get it, like we're going to help you. And so I think just coming in with that, I think as long as you have that kind of attitude, I'm excited personally. I'm really excited to see where like every job is in like 10 years because I think it's going to be so different. I mean, Taco Bell, for instance, like you don't even order with the person anymore. They've got
Yeah.
those kiosks, like literally AI. I'm like, that is so crazy, but it's so cool. And so I'm just excited. I think if everybody has a heart posture, we've got a bright future ahead of us.
Yes, I kind of want to say something similar. Like, I feel like kindness is contagious. Kindness was so contagious, it made this happen. And
Mhm.
so I think trying to be kind to people, the best advice I ever received was be the person who walks into the room and says things positive about it, not things negative. Don't be that
Mhm.
person who walks into the room and is like, that chair's crooked, that's crooked. Be the person who can find all the positive things and just illuminate them. And I think one thing, this is actually advice from Madison's pastor. He said, come to me with solutions. I think if we all came together and just in the work environment, if we all just came together with solutions, I think we would really see a positive change because like I said, negativity coming in like showing all these, this is a problem, this is a problem, this problem. It's okay to say like, hey, this is a problem, but here's a solution. Do you also, what do you think about it? What's your solution? And just being kind to each other, positive kindness, I think it goes a long way. I think the work environment, we spend a lot of time with each other. They're going to become your family, whether you really want them to or not. And so, if it has to be a place that you love to be, you're going to spend a lot of your life there, a lot of your day. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, that would be my advice.
Well, thank you too, ladies. If anybody wanted to get in touch with you or maybe come out to one of your church services, where can they find you and what kind of platforms are you on?
Okay, I'm on Instagram. My handle is from my middle school era. It's Mia XOXO. It's so embarrassing and I won't change it because it makes me cringe, but it also, I love that version of myself and I just love that she loved everybody and wanted it to be known. On Facebook, I am always on Facebook. You can reach me out. And then I'm a worship leader at Church on the Rock. So I'm always there at one of those campuses. So I'd love for anybody and everybody to come say hi to me.
I love that. I am also on Instagram. I did change my handle because unlike Mia, I was not confident in who I was whenever I was in middle school.
I love
Um,
it.
but my handle it's Maddie Madie Elliot, two L's, two T's. So you can find me on there. I'm also on Facebook. You can reach out via Messenger, Madison Elliot. And then also my church, I am a worship leader, worship pastor now because I got credentialed with my denomination.
Yay.
It is Key City Church of God in Abilene, Texas. So we're always, out doing something, doing outreaches. So I would love to see whoever would like to join. So yeah.
Well, thank you too for sharing your insight and perspectives. I know I've grown from the conversation myself. And so I hope you out there listening have also received a little nugget of wisdom and just new perspective. All right, everyone, that is a wrap. I'm Angelina Mojica, your life coach, sending you much love, much peace, many blessings.